We talked about the person-centred approach in terms of this VIPS approach. And I'd like to just spend a moment with it again in terms of this physical and social environment focus. We're focusing in the person-centred approach on the unique value of each human being, regardless of their age or disability. So I'd ask you to think about how that is reflected, how their value is reflected in the physical environment around them. How do we show that people are valuable by the physical setup of our care, or the life opportunity we create for people? How do we do that, do you think? What is it in the physical environment that says these people are important?
Respecting their culture. I know we have lots of Dutch things around our lounge rooms, you know, like in the Amalia section, we've got pictures of royalty and Princess Amalia. We've got food, you know, Dutch food, of course. So, yeah, it's just basically respecting their culture and what they would like at home, or used to have at home.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're seeing is cultural indications of respect. Okay. Any other? How else might you do that? How do you see indications of respect and value in your care environments? How do we see that the people we care for are valued, are important, are respected?
Sections, one each unit. The lifestyle staff have started taking photos during activities when people are having a really good time, and they post their pinboard those photos in each of the units. So if you're walking by, you can see that, oh, Mrs. Jones is doing this, and you know, the families can see that as well, and the residents sometimes we find them standing there just looking at the photos, saying, oh, the dogs came in or whatever, something like that.
So these people who you see sitting here have a lot more to them than just sitting quietly. And in fact, they're doing a lot more than that. So this is a way to respect them. Yeah, good.
Yeah, and since we started the project in our unit, some of the family members, they were really helpful, and they make like life stories, sort of big like photos, like small photos in the big frame, like scenes from their childhood and their like profession, and some of them like the residents like doctor, and like, you know, when you see that personality from the childhood until that age, then we find like that person is really different, like, you know.
Yeah.
It's someone is not like lying and or sitting in the top chair, not talking and not like not doing anything. You just feed them. It's something else you can see from the picture as well. So whenever you just go to that room, you just give a moment. Okay, yes, that person is that. And when you see there, like it's different.
So being in touch with their life story is a way to value the person.
Value the person, yeah, and you got like a little bit different respect for that person, like, you know, oh, that was GP and he's now in this condition, so
so once you know things about the person, you can value them more.
Rather than you just entering and one resident room, you didn't know anything about them, like, you know, when you see the pictures and stuff, oh, that person with that kind. We got the resident special with the footies and stuff, so whenever you see that footies things there, and then you know, oh, that person got that value.
Yeah.
So those are, it's not like a different with the care, like, you know, we provide the special care for the special person, but it's like different image you got it in your mind, like, you know.
Yeah, it changes the way you think about the person, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, Carl. Anybody else?
I think also having, like, everybody has their own individual space, so that nobody's crowded on anybody else, and everybody has their own room or own space available that is theirs, not interfering with anybody else's, or they've got that is theirs.
So having some private personal space is important. Yeah. Okay. That shows we value the person. It's interesting, isn't it? And this is very different to, say, what we expect and accept as normal here in Australia is very different to what is normal in other care environments. I'm thinking here of Singapore, for instance, where they would have many more people in a room, say this size, than we would expect as normal. They would have multiple beds. They might have 6 people in beds here in an aged care, in a nursing environment. Whereas today we've moved away from these multi-bed rooms, haven't we, to much more individual, private space.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So-
when I first started nursing, we used to have 6 residents to a room.
Yeah.
Imagine that there's
It's
no
middle.
only divided by
That's right.
those old all-around screens. And you can imagine it's like a hospital, there's no privacy in there.
It's like a hospital. So we've moved away from the hospital paradigm to the more domestic paradigm. And in the home, you generally have a room to yourself, don't you? Unless you're married and you share a bed with somebody, in which case there'll be 2 of you in the room. So what we're moving to is expectations and preferences around different models or ways of living. So as our preferences have moved to a more domestic style of care or of living, so too has the way that we design our physical environment. So architects are now designing many more environments that have only single rooms. It's a very interesting shift. So we move away from the V to the I. How do we now create an individualised approach for people? You've mentioned a lot of it already.
Respect their choices.
Respecting their choices in terms of physical environment.
Even to tasks, you know, without sharing how we want to have things later or how do you also the day?
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Personalize the care, like individual.
Individually.
Individually.
This is where life story comes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you get to know what that person's preferences are. Okay. And physically, we decorate people's rooms, or we encourage them to do it, so that it's individualised. It's their personal taste, as you've described already. Furniture from home. The lady you described, Kalpana, who has a very uniquely personal space. It feels like her space. Yeah. Okay. So we do that rather well, I think, in lots of ways. In some places, not so well. We need to try to do that some more, particularly where there are shared rooms. And I know at Hallam there are shared rooms, and quite a few at Bond Beach. Where you have the shared rooms, they tend to still be very hospital-like, because you have the curtain that gets pulled around the bed, and that's one of the limits that on being able to personalise that private space, because it's not real private at times. So I just give you that task to think creatively about how that can be personalised. How can you individualise or personalise that space for people who share rooms?
It is hard with even things like, you know, one resident might like to watch television really late at night, the other one doesn't
Yeah.
want to. And they go, can you tell them to turn the television off because I want to go to sleep?
Yeah, they're very basic
Basic
issues, aren't they, about sharing space. And in a family, we can negotiate that, providing you're not a teenager. You can negotiate that reasonably well, you know, with discussion and sharing. Yes, so there's some challenge to try to come up with some solutions to that.
Yeah, I have trouble with, like, air condition and
we
window open as well. And why is you get that warm on that side and why can't I get it? So that's a good question.
Do any of you have electric blanket with dual controls?
No,
No,
not
no.
allowed.
No, not in aged care, but at home. No, okay. Were you thinking about home or at work?
No, at work, like I get that question from like one particular resident. She always complain about, oh, her TV is loud, I can't sleep at that time, and why she get warm air and my side is cool, and yeah, those sort of problem, like, you know.
The difficulties of living together.
Yeah, and one is like can't communicate, and one is cognitively impaired. So we have to think about someone is on the top chair.
Mm.
So like her roommate is cognitively impaired. She can do the things by herself,
Yeah.
but we can't listen her all the time because we have to think about herself as well.
So for somebody in the tub chair who is perhaps unable to verbally indicate that she is unhappy with the temperature, or
Yeah,
the responsibility comes back to us, doesn't
to
it?
us, yeah.
To monitor and advocate for her.
Even she will say like, oh, she's not watching TV, she's not saying anything, so can you turn up? We said like, look, that's her time after breakfast. Even she's not telling you anything, we have to put the telly on. We can negotiate the volume and stuff, but we still do that, like, for her.
Good.
Yeah, so
Okay.
sometimes we get unhappy then.
Interesting
She asked
time for
her-
negotiation.
She asked me, how would you know that she's understanding TV? I said, well, we just know that she loves watching TV. That's what the family told us, and I think it's fair for her as well. And oh my goodness, it's on and on, like.
It's a very good question, really.
It's
How do you know
ongoing.
she loves watching TV? You've been told by the family? Yeah, absolutely.
And you
But
can
the-
see from the facial
She
expression.
pays attention to the screen.
There you are.
and
Yes, it makes it.
looking
If
at
she can't use words, how else does she communicate pleasure?
Mm.
She does it through body language, isn't it? Facial expression. Yeah. So for somebody without words, we come back to those other channels of communication through body language. Yeah. So you can give her an answer.
We have to, every time we enter, like, she would complain about something.
So we move on then to the P. How do we provide a physical environment that is person-centred from the perspective of the person? How do we do that? How do you do that?
I think allowing them to get the choices as well been saying,
Right.
that they can choose some bits and pieces from home. And also be allowed to decorate according to what they like or liked to do. Like those who like footy, you enter into the room, it's all footy pictures and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So there'll be questions you would ask them, and you would invite them to take up choices, yeah? To make choices about personalising their space. And you, as you've indicated, that often happens right at the beginning, doesn't it? At the admission.
Yes.
But it's never too late to invite somebody to make a preference, particularly if they've been there for a long time and nobody's really personalising their space for them. You can still ask them, what would you like? And sometimes that can trigger off a lot of thinking in a person about what they would really like. And you can end up having lots of good discussions to come to understanding that, you know, maybe the person has really forgotten the fact that they can choose things for their space, particularly if they don't have many family visiting them, so they're really on their own. So you become their advocate. Okay. The S, how do we create a social environment that supports psychological needs? How do we do that in a person-centred way? How do we create that through the physical setup, through the physical arrangements of things? How do we support social needs, social psychological needs through the physical environment?
We can have, even the dining table, the way it's set up, we can have it set up maybe a round table and with a few chairs, so if, you know, they want to have lunch together with co-residents, they can do that together and sort of interact socially and just discussing, have a cup of tea together or with staff or whoever is sitting there with them. We have a little, one of the units, we have a little room that's sort of off the dining room and people can go in there and have meals or just sit with family and visitors, a little quiet area. So if they feel like they want to have a chat, they can just go in there and that type of thing.
Yeah. Good. So your physical environment provides opportunities for social interaction. Great.
And also encourage like lifestyle, encourage activities that people enjoy doing that, you know.
So you've got space for that?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So social, occupational interaction can be supported by having those physical spaces to do that. And that can be in the building or it can be outside in the garden, can't it? because a lot of good things can happen in the garden. There's a lovely space just out here.
Like when all our guys have TVs in the room, like the big ones nowadays, you know, but they still like going and watch the movies together on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
On the
To go somewhere.
Yes, get their stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And also to watch a movie with other people.
Yeah, they talk about it.
So,
It's a social event, an occasion, isn't it?
Yeah. Movies used to be. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And you don't have to hide in the boot to get into the drive-in. Okay.
And big windows as well, so that sometimes even if they don't want to participate in activities, they can sort of sit and look at the flowers, and you can hear old ladies chattering to themselves, oh, look at the puppy, or they can see it, and they might not be able to go outside, it might be too cold, but they'll be able to see the sunlight and I guess the view of whatever is out there, the hills and stuff like that, which I think, it's good. It gives you a little sense of peace. It's a relaxing
The window access to the outside environment.
But here we've got the ocean, so everyone's second floor's got an ocean view.
Wow. Yeah.
That's quite a peaceful type thing, I think. The ocean.
Yeah. That's great, isn't it? Yeah. So there's some good opportunity built into the environment to interact with the external world and to provide opportunity for social enjoyment and psychological enjoyment. Any other thoughts?
Sometimes I think double room at times is important.
Double room?
Yeah, the shared room sometimes is important. Really depends on the individuals. Some we don't have family, the one someday, some company, and then if you found good match, they will be good friends and support each other. So I mean, probably it's not really happened most of the time, but at times it happened. We did happen, they just like.
Having a double room is not all bad.
No, it's not.
Yeah, at times it's good.
Yeah.
We get support from each other.
It's a very good point, Linda, and I think this is something we underestimate. And we as younger people, we often think that the older person, our parents, want what we want. And I think this can be a mistake sometimes. Sometimes they can actually benefit from having somebody else nearby who they can chat to, who they can talk to, who they might get on well with, and develop a friendship perhaps. I know that does happen sometimes. You have to choose fairly carefully, don't you? The characters.
But it doesn't match with the,
And you always get the opportunity to make that choice.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, numbers-wise, like just logistically-wise, does that always work?
It's normally from the family, like, who they paying more, they get the single room and paying less.
You got the double room here, the bottom.
Yeah, but sometimes we can make a suggestion if someone is not getting along with that person, and we can give the management suggestion if we can move that room, and we did in the past and it did work. Because like putting one cognitive person and one wanderer, like we always get complaints from the cognitive person because that lady would walk midnight and she can't sleep and those sort of things. So we gave a suggestion to move that wanderer person to with another wanderer resident, like that in that way, like it was quite effective.
So they match.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. We can make a suggestion.
We have couples, several couples in Central Park, so they just need us. You just need that room.
And some couples are good with each other, and some couples are better on different floors, aren't they?
One couple we have to be like, whole day they will sit together, but they get different room.
You've got two couples here that do the same thing. They spend the days together, but they want the space.
So here we're thinking all the time of, is their social need, or are their social needs going to be met by, or how are they going to be met by the physical environment around them? So we have that sort of responsibility to provide options. Okay, good. What we do about the physical environment has all of these different consequences. The physical environment has consequences for the cognitive ability of the person. In other words, if they are unable, because of the cognitive damage to their brain, if they are unable to remember where their room is, then they will need some cues, some indications of where their room is. And that might be a sign on the outside of the door, it might be a flower or a piece of sculpture in a corner, so that when they walk down the corridor they can see that and they know that their room is nearby. Because we remember things by association. So the cognitive element is very important. The other dimension to that is if the person has to make many decisions to find the toilet or many decisions in order to find the dining room, then it's going to be very difficult for them. So when they get to the door of their room, is it easy for them to find the dining room, a toilet, the recreation space, the door to outside? Or is it complicated? Do they have to look both ways? It could be that way, it could be that way. Or is it around the corner? Is it hidden from them? Because if it's complicated and it involves several different turns, then it's going to be more likely that the person will fail, will not be able to succeed without support. So they will need to be supported to do that. Or are there many dead ends in the environment that create cognitive problems for the person? Are there physical implications? In other words, are there floor coverings that create the likelihood the person will fall because they trip? Are they wearing shoes that cause them to trip or slip? So the interaction between the footwear and the flooring becomes really important. Are there steps or are there stairs or are there transitions from one floor covering to another that make it more likely that somebody will trip or fall?
Well, you didn't talk about air conditioning. Is it warm enough, cold enough, or lighting, the sound?
That's right. All the senses. So if, we'll go into all of those senses shortly. Light, sound, temperature, all of those things will have physical implications for the person. If it's too hot, then they'll need to be hydrated more. If it gets hot and cold really quickly, or differently in different parts of the building, people will get more chest problems, more colds. What are the behavioural problems that might occur because a physical environment is not ideal?
Social isolation.
Could be isolated, long distance from where staff are. Aggression. Why would aggression?
They can't get out.
Can't get out. Good. Okay. So they're constantly coming up against barriers.
Pacing the corridors because the corridor's a long corridor in our facility.
Right. Yeah. Or it might be a racetrack, as somebody, I know people describe the corridors in the dementia environment. Some people say, oh, you've got to have a racetrack. Why would you want to build a racetrack? What you want is a home environment for people where they can get out if they want to, if they can, interaction with the physical and inside-outside experience. But behavioural problems emerge when the physical environment is not ideal. Where people are cooped up, there are too many people with not enough space. Well, that becomes an issue. If the environment's too noisy, if there's not enough light, or if it's too blurry. Emotional problems. Emotional and social problems, we might put those together. If people are isolated, then they can often be very depressed. If people are close up with each other, it can be like an emotional hothouse. If there's not enough space, they can never get some space on their own. They're always interacting with people. Then that creates an emotional hothouse, a social hothouse. And it's very difficult for people to relax, feel calm, particularly if they are cognitively struggling to make sense of their world. And their basic needs are not met. Attachment, comfort, inclusion, identity and occupation. Get to know those 5 needs. We'll come up with them shortly.